Hey guys, it's Comfcali Studios here. In today's video, we're going to get a little bit speculative about Great Adventure, specifically what other rides might wind up being removed from the park in the relatively near future. We obviously know that Six Flags recently merged with Cedar Fair, and the new company has been going on a bit of a purge across the chain, taking out rides they deem either too maintenance intensive, not popular enough, or whatever other reasons they may have. And Great Adventure definitely took the most of those losses out of all the parks. We already know that ahead of the 2025 season, Kingda Ka, Zumanjaro, Green Lantern, Parachutes, Twister, as well as Skyway are all 100% confirmed by the park to be removed ahead of the season. Now, there are a couple other rides that are likely to be removed that they have not announced yet. We'll get into that in a little bit. But in this video, in addition to covering those, we are going to look at what other rides could potentially be on the chopping block, not necessarily right away, but in the long-term future. I'd say within 7-8 years, if I had to guess, which rides I could see going. And that includes rides that may no longer be operational either, that may just be sitting dormant and need to be removed. That, of course, is kind of talking about the Right Stuff building, but we'll talk about that later on. So let's start right away with the most obvious one, which is Cyborg. Now, as of the recording of this video, the park has not actually confirmed what is happening to Cyborg. Hopefully, for my sake, that doesn't change by the time this video is out, but they have not confirmed what is happening with it publicly. So if you look at all the facts and the evidence, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it is getting removed. They already removed a lot of the fencing around the attraction, meaning like the black fencing that blocked the danger zone area from guest access. All of that has been removed. The ride's been sitting there for all the 2024 season. It was originally supposed to stay, along with Flash being constructed pretty much around it, but it looks like that's probably not happening. On top of that, Flash's second queue house clearly is not being built. There were 2 queue houses in the original plans for that attraction. Only one is being built. So that tells me what's more than likely going to happen is that Cyborg is going to get ripped out because it's a very unreliable, maintenance-intensive ride. Its sister ride over at Six Flags Over Texas was already removed a couple years ago, so it was probably living off of those parts for a little bit, and I imagine now they decided to just cut their losses and call it a day with that ride. So what I would probably do, what I'm expecting them to do, is take Cyborg's massive queue and use it for Flash, because it really is a lot of queue space, and if I had to guess, Flash is probably going to use a lot of it. So they're probably going to tie that in with the main queue house, maybe even relocate Flash's entrance from where it was originally planned to be over towards where Cyborg's current entrance is, and that'll probably be the end of that attraction. There's a couple other rides I want to have my eye on, maybe for this year, maybe for next year, not too sure. One of those is Daredevil Dive. Now, this might come as a bit of a surprise because nothing really seemed out there about this ride getting removed, but this is kind of working off what the company has done at other parks. They have been getting rid of these Sky Coaster attractions. They're getting rid of the one at Cedar Point right now. They got rid of the one at Canada's Wonderland, and who's to say the one at Great Adventure isn't next? Again, there's not really anything physical in the park that we can see, but I have a feeling the entire boardwalk area is probably going to get a major renovation, and Daredevil Dive is at the furthest end of the boardwalk, closest to the rest of the park. So I could see them starting by getting rid of that attraction, in addition to everything else they already got rid of, to kind of start their new direction for the boardwalk in rehabbing the whole area. Now, talking about Daredevil Dive, that does bring up a couple other attractions that are located in that area of the park. The 2 I have on my mind are the Great American Road Race and the Right Stuff building. Now, I know Right Stuff technically isn't a ride anymore, but the amount of room that building takes up might as well be a ride. The only issue I have with the park getting rid of this is that I know they just dumped a ton of money into redoing that building to have all the new Fright Fest stuff in it. It is fully equipped, just like all the other buildings are, for the new style of Fright Fest mazes. But quite honestly, that building really should have been removed a long time ago. It's in a terrible spot in the park, kind of right in the middle. You can see it from a lot of different areas, and they don't do anything with it other than storage and Fright Fest. So I think it would be smart to relocate the Fright Fest stuff to a different building, somewhere in a different area of the park, take all the storage stuff from there and move it backstage, and clear out that whole area along with the go-karts. And then you have a giant plot of land from Daredevil Dive all the way to the go-karts, kind of coming right up against Superman. Now that we talk about Superman, I don't necessarily think they're going to get rid of this. Personally, I would love to see it go because I really don't like this ride. I think it's a pretty boring ride. It's like the most standard of the B&M flying coasters out there, but they're putting a lot of money into the ride for this upcoming season, so I really don't see them doing anything to it. And honestly, with them getting rid of basically everything around it with Lantern, Parachutes, and Twister, you probably would have just assumed they would get rid of that while they were at it, but their choice to keep it tells me that either A, they didn't want to purge too many rides from the same area at once, or B, they're just not going to get rid of it and they're going to keep it there. I do hope that if they do keep it here, they re-theme it in some capacity. Having Superman be on his own all the way in a completely different area than the rest of the DC rides honestly really doesn't make sense thematically, and I know Cedar Fair definitely is big on making sure their parks have thematic cohesion. I mean, just look at what they're doing with King's Dominion with retheming I-305 to Pantherian. They're repainting the exterior of Flight of Fear so it fits in with that whole themed area, and I definitely think they're going to take all that thematic cohesion into this park too when they start changing some things around, so hopefully we'll see something done down there. But another ride that I should mention, since it is right there, is Slingshot. And I have a feeling this will stay. We haven't really seen Cedar Fair get rid of any of them. They're a pretty popular upcharge attraction, and unlike Daredevil Dive or the other sky coasters, they're not as difficult to load. They don't have such a long kind of gap in between one rider or one group of riders riding to the next. It's a pretty good capacity that it has, and of course it does make money since it is an upcharge attraction, so I wouldn't be surprised if that does wind up staying. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if everything but Superman and the parachutes are gone already. Superman and the Slingshot are removed from the boardwalk. Those are the only two that would stay. Everything around it go. I could definitely see that and see them completely redo the area along with that massive plot of land they have opened up from Kaz replacement, which will probably take up all of Kaz land. I don't really think it'll go into Lanterns, plus everything you have other than that. So I could see them doing a lot with this area down the line. Now, my next ride on the list might be a little bit surprising, is Skull Mountain. Out of all the coasters at the park right now, I think Skull is probably the closest to getting removed. There's a lot of things with this ride that I think would just make sense to completely tear it down and build something new. For starters, it's a pretty old ride. It opened in '96. It is an intimate attraction, which doesn't necessarily mean they're just going to get rid of it right away, but it is something to keep in mind. The ride's building definitely could use a bit of an overhaul. Its theming is not in the best state anymore, and I think to do a refurb, honestly, they would be better off just building a new family coaster there. And on top of that, that theme for that ride doesn't really make sense that much in that area anymore. You have a whole lot of like different themes all over the place, and again, you know, Cedar Fair likes their thematic cohesion, so I could definitely see them coming into this area over by Skull Mountain, Jersey Devil, Junior Thrill Seekers, maybe turning all of it into the Pine Barrens, retheming Nitro along with it. And Skull, I could honestly see just getting replaced with a new family coaster, maybe one that has a bigger, better layout that goes and does a little bit more. I think that would be really cool. But Skull Mountain is definitely a ride I would keep an eye on as potentially down the line getting removed. Another ride and area I would keep an eye on is Medusa and the Northern Star Arena. I think that whole back area of Frontier Adventures is severely underutilized, and we know what Cedar Fair can do with their theming and their big areas, and I think Frontier Adventures should be one they target. Keep everything in the front half the same. I think Mine Train, Log Flume, Best of the West, all that's fine. Maybe just give it a bit of a freshening up, but nothing too crazy. But when you go to the back half of Frontier Adventures, where there's pretty much nothing but Medusa, honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if they did get rid of Medusa. I mean, it's, again, getting up there in age, 1999. Green Lantern was just scrapped, and that was built originally in 1997, so again, that's not to say all B&M coasters are going to get scrapped that are that old, but they might see Medusa as a ride that's not as popular, not really in the greatest area, and maybe they think they can do something better with the plot of land that sits on, along with the Northern Star Arena, because that is a lot of space over there. Plus, you have the Safari Off-Road Adventure Station, which it doesn't really seem like they're going to be using going into next year. I think they're going to switch everything to the base camp, where you're in the trucks, but you're boarding from outside the park as opposed to inside the park. So I think a lot of redevelopment is going to happen in that area as well, and I would keep an eye on that area. Other than that, though, there's no other rides I really think are too high on the hit list for potential removals at the park. Then again, you never know. I'm sure none of us expected King Dakar to permanently close and get torn down if you asked me a year ago today. So we always got to keep our eyes out for any signs of potential removal or change at the park, because I have a feeling Great Adventure is going to see a lot of change over the next few years as Cedar Fair, New Six Flags, tries to take the park and change it into more of a resort-style park, probably going for more attendance, more revenue, getting the park back to where it should be. And that's probably going to include getting rid of a lot of rides they see as not making sense being at the park for whatever reason it may be, whether it's maintenance, age, popularity. There's a variety of reasons why these rides might be removed. And overall, if we wind up getting great replacements for the rides that do go, I think it's definitely for the better. With all that being said though guys, that's going to do it for this speculative video on the future of some of Great Adventures attractions, which ones may stay, which ones may go. If you guys have any other rides you think might get removed from the park in favor of new investment, let me know down in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye guys.